Aristotle's dualistic view of intellect. The doctrine of the intentionality of intellect leads Aristotle to make a distinction between two kinds of intellect. Receptive or passive intellect is characterized by the ability to become like all things and is analogous to the writing tablet. Productive or active intellect is characterized by the ability to bring about all things and is analogous to the act of writing. The active intellect is thus akin to the light that illuminates objects, making them perceptible by sight. Aristotle holds that the soul never thinks without an image produced by imagination to serve as its material. Thus, in understanding something, the productive intellect actuates the receptive intellect, which stimulates the imagination to produce a particular image corresponding to the universal content of the understanding. Hence, while Aristotle describes the active intellect as unaffected, separate, and immaterial, it serves to bring to completion the passive intellect, the latter of which is inseparable from imagination and hence from perception and nutrition. Aristotle's insistence that intellect is not a subject of natural science, PA 641-33b9, motivates the view that thinking requires a contribution from the supernatural or divine. Indeed, in Metaphysics, 1072b1930, Aristotle argues that intellect actively understanding the intelligible is the everlasting God. For readers like the medieval Arabic commentator Ibn Rushd, passive intellect is spread like matter among thinking beings. This material intellect is activated by God, the agent intellect, so that when one is thinking, one participates in the activity of the divine intellect. According to this view, every act of thinking is also an act of divine illumination in which God actuates one's thinking power as the writer actuates a blank writing tablet. However, in other passages, Aristotle says that when the body is destroyed, the soul is destroyed too. Length and shortness of life, 465b 2332. Thus, it seems that Aristotle's psychological explanations assume embodiment and require that thinking be something done by the individual human being. Indeed, Aristotle argues that if thinking is either a kind of imaginative representation or impossible without imagination, then it will be impossible without body. DA 403a810. But the psyche never thinks without imagination. DA 431-1617. It seems to follow that far from being a part of the everlasting thinking of God, human thinking is something that happens in a living body and ends when that body is no longer alive. Thus, Jimenez, 2014, 95-99, argues that thinking is embodied in three ways. It is preceded by bodily processes, simultaneous with embodied processes, and anticipates bodily processes, namely intentional actions. For further discussion, see Jimenez, 2017. The whole psyche governs the characteristic functions and changes of a living thing. The nutritive psyche is the formal cause of growth and metabolism and is shared by plants, while the perceptual psyche gives rise to desire, which causes self-moving animals to act. When one becomes aware of an apparent good by perception or imagination, one forms either an appetite, the desire for pleasure, or thumos, the spirited desire for revenge or honor. A third form of desire, wish, is the product of the rational psyche, DA 433-2030. Boeri has pointed out that Aristotle's psychology cuts a middle path between physicalism, which identifies the psyche with body, and dualism, which posits the independent existence of the soul and body. By characterizing the psyche as he does, Aristotle can at once deny that the psyche is a body, but also insist that it does not exist without a body. The living body of an animal can thus be thought of as a form that has been materialized. Boeri, 2018, 166-169.